Welcome to Behind the Magic, a podcast from Aradia's Closet. I'm Tanya, your host, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about Wicca and the Wheel of the Year. The history of the neo-pagan religion of Wicca is surrounded by much debate and uncertainty. The religion first came to public notice in the United Kingdom in the early 1950s through press articles and a book entitled Witchcraft Today by Gerald Gardner. In his various writings and his autobiography, Gardner reported that he had met a group of witches in Dorset, England in 1939. This group had become known as the New Forest Coven. The New Forest is one of the oldest forests in England and is steeped in folklore and witchcraft associations. From the 1950s onwards, Gardner was enthusiastic in initiating new candidates into the religion that he had brought to light. It is still a matter of controversy within the Wiccan community as to whether Gardner discovered an authentic pre-Christian religion or simply created the religion of Wicca himself, which is what I think. In 1946, Gardner was introduced to Aleister Crowley. His meetings with Crowley would later lead to controversy over how authentic Gardner's original Book of Shadows was. It was alleged that Gardner paid Crowley to write it for him. While it did contain some of Crowley's writings, this was the result of Gardner and Crowley comparing notes on rituals used in the covens of the New Forest area. In many ways, Aleister Crowley was not a well-liked man, but he influenced and had an effect on the buildup of the era of modern witchcraft. His knowledge of witchcraft and magic was profound and without question, and he has passed on that knowledge through his books. One of these is the Book of the Law, from which portions of the well-known Charge of the Goddess was written by Doreen Valiente. In 1932, Crowley met with Sybil Leek, another famous witch, and became a frequent visitor to her home. Sybil, a hereditary witch, was only 9 years old at the time, and later wrote in her autobiography, Diary of a Witch, that Crowley talked to her about witchcraft. While walking in the woods one day, Sybil had a vision. It brought to her the realization that her purpose in life was to promote the craft and the old religion. I kind of feel like that's my calling too. And it was a really good book. I read it when I was flying somewhere at some point. With the revival of a modern witchcraft movement in the late 1950s and early 60s, she began to do just that. In the 1960s, Alex Saunders took up where Gerald Gardner left off and aroused interest in Wicca in new generations. Alex Saunders was responsible for founding the Alexandrian tradition of Wicca, now one of the main traditions of the Wiccan movement. He had many faults, and many objected to his semi-tongue-in-cheek title of King of the Witches, but the Wiccan world owes him a great deal. Alexandrian Wicca remains today one of the largest traditions of the craft. In 1962, Raymond Buckland came to the United States from England. Known as the father of American Wicca, Raymond Buckland was responsible for introducing Wicca to the United States. He was the author of the first American book on the old religion written by a witch and has since written nearly 60 others, including the classic Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft, also known as Buckland's Big Blue Book. In 1981, Janet and Stuart Farrar co-authored 8 Sabbaths for Witches. In 1984, they co-authored The Witch's Way. The Witch's Way provided the first thorough reconstruction of the evolution of the Gardnerian Book of Shadows, as it was developed by Gerald Gardner and Doreen Valiente. In the United States, both books were combined and published as a Witch's Bible Complete. Besides Gardner, Saunders, and Crowley, the modern pagan movement also owes much to the women who shaped its direction and brought it into public notice. Women like Z. Budapest, founder of Dianic Wicca, author and teacher; Margaret Murray, anthropologist, archaeologist, and Egyptologist; and Starhawk, who is one of the most respected voices in modern earth-based spirituality. She is also well known as a global justice activist and organizer whose work and writings have inspired many to actions. She is also well known as a global justice activist and organizer whose work and writings have inspired many to action. She is the author of the best-selling book Spiral Dance, founder of the Reclaiming Collective, and priestess of the Compost Coven. She was influential in the decision by the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations to include earth-centered traditions in the UUA source of faith. She led numerous workshops for and was an active member of CUPS. What does CUPS stand for? The Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans. Besides Starhawk, there was also teacher Margaret Adler, author of the pioneering book Drawing Down the Moon and a board member of CUPS. So now I want to talk to you about the Wheel of the Year. The goddess gives birth to a son, the god, at Yule in December. Yule is a time of the greatest darkness, and it is the shortest day of the year. Since the god is also the sun, this marks the point of the year when the sun is reborn as well. The goddess, slumbering through the winter of her labor, rests after her delivery. Imbolc, in February, marks the recovery of the goddess after giving birth to the god. The lengthening periods of light awaken her. The god is a young, lusty boy, but his power is felt in the longer days. The warmth fertilizes the earth, the goddess, and causes seeds to germinate and sprout, and so the earliest beginnings of spring occur. Ostara, in March, marks the first day of true spring. The energies of nature subtly shift from the sluggishness of winter to the exuberant expansions of spring. The goddess blankets the earth with fertility, bursting forth from her sleep as the god stretches and grows to maturity. He walks the greening fields and delights in the abundance of nature. On Ostara, the hours of day and night are equal. Light is overtaking darkness. The goddess and god compel the wild creatures of the earth to reproduce. Then we have Beltane in April. This marks the emergence of the young god into manhood. Stirred by the energies at work in nature, he desires the goddess. They fall in love, lie among the grass and blossoms, and unite. The goddess becomes pregnant of the god Midsummer. Then we have the summer solstice in June. This arrives when the powers of nature reaches their highest point. The earth is awash in the fertility of the goddess and god. Then we have Lughnasadh in August. It's the time of the first harvest, when the plants of spring wither and drop their fruits or seeds for our use, as well as to ensure future crops. Mystically, so too does the god lose his strength as the sun rises further in the south each day and the nights grow longer. The goddess watches in sorrow and joy as she realizes that the god is dying and yet lives on inside her as her child. And then we have Mabon in September. This is the completion of the harvest begun at Lughnasadh. Once again, day and night are equal, poised as the god prepares to leave his physical body and begin the great adventure into the unseen, towards renewal and rebirth of the goddess. Nature declines, draws back its bounty, readying for winter and its time of rest. The goddess nods in the weakening sun, though fire burns within her womb. She feels the presence of the god as he wanes. At Samhain, in October, we say farewell to the god. This is a temporary farewell, though. He isn't wrapped in eternal darkness, but readies to be reborn of the goddess at Yule. The Wheel of the Year is complete. So one thing to make note is that pagan holidays begin at sundown the day before the given date. The date of the solstices and equinoxes, true astronomical events, vary slightly from year to year. A good astrological calendar will give you the correct dates and times for the current year. Thanks for tuning in. I wish you all a happy new year.